Picking technique. That is our topic once again for today's video, but we're doing something that we haven't done before. You guys and girls voted for a beginner alternate picking lesson on the lesson wishlist on Patreon for this month. And aside from that, I also got a lot of emails, messages and comments requesting this topic. I guess since we mostly look at advanced exercises and practice concepts, it's about time to focus on some beginner alternate picking exercises. So for today's video, I'd like to revisit the 5 best beginner alternate picking exercises that really helped me out a lot in the beginning. So let's start practicing together right away. Now, before we check out the 5 really cool picking exercises I'd like to show you today, we should focus on the motion in general at first. So to answer one of the most frequently asked questions right away, what kind of picks am I working with? Right now I'm playing these chest-free size picks. Those are the Dunlop Max Grip series, but actually any kind of chest-free size pick works great for me. I like a rough surface. Like with this Max Grip surface, you won't lose your pick that easily when you have really sweaty hands on stage. So that is something that I like to go for concerning guitar picks, the chest-free size, those small picks, since they give me the most amount of control. And when it comes to the picking motion itself, you will see that I always have my wrist attached to the guitar in some way, so my wrist is never floating around like that, for example. I know that a lot of guitar players are getting great results out of a technique like this, but I feel like I always have to be in touch with the guitar, and my wrist is always kind of placed on the bridge, not always on the strings, because that way I would always mute the strings like that, but it is placed right here. So I always feel that connection to the instrument. And I wouldn't really get tight and controlled results if I would play like that, if my right hand wasn't attached to the guitar at all. So even when I'm just strumming or arpeggiating chords, my hand is also resting on the guitar like that, so it never looks like that, for example. Another thing that you can probably observe is that the movement is always quite small and relaxed. I'm never using my entire arm to pick like that. So staying relaxed is actually quite important for me, since I want to play fast and tricky sections. That's what I enjoy playing. And I also want that to sound good with a clean sound or with a crunch sound or an acoustic guitar. And that wouldn't really be possible if the motion looked something like that. That sounds pretty terrible. And it always seems like using more force, playing with more power, is like a shortcut to playing faster, but that's really not the case. So even when I'm speeding things up, I still want to make sure to be relaxed, not to use my entire arm like that. The motion is still mainly coming from my wrist. When I'm playing faster, I'm using a little bit more of my arm, but it never looks like that, and it never feels exhausting, or I never feel any pain in my wrist or any burning sensation in my arm. And one more thing that you probably noticed already as well, I'm forming a fist when I'm playing, so it doesn't look like that. I'm not stretching out my fingers and they are not kind of flopping around like that when I'm playing. And as soon as I started trying that out, I got much better results, and it kind of suddenly became much easier to control the amount of notes that I was playing. So I think we are more than ready to look at the first exercise right now. This is my very first alternate picking exercise that I ever worked on, that I want to show you today as number 1 as well. So with this one, we're actually working on 2 different patterns already. If you want to slow it down even more, you can just isolate those 2 patterns and work on them individually. For the first one, we are playing downstroke, upstroke, downstroke. So 8th note, and then a quarter note. So the full pattern, the first pattern would be. And for the second pattern, we're turning it around and we're starting with the quarter note and we're playing the 2 8th notes after that. So that one starts with the downstroke, with the quarter note, then downstroke, upstroke. So the entire pattern would be. That sounds simple enough, but it's really tricky to play it perfectly accurate to a click, and as always I want you to practice this to a metronome. So please don't just sit at home with your guitar and your amplifier and go like that. Because that doesn't really make any sense if you don't have any pulse. You also want to work on your timing and rhythm right here, and that is the exact reason why I recorded some video play-alongs for you once again. You can find the tabs, guitar profiles and video play-alongs for all of those exercises I will show you today on patreon.com/BERNTH. When you download those video play-alongs after joining my shred guitar community over there today, you can start practicing together with me in every single practice routine, so you have a direct reference of my technique and can mimic what's going on screen. And I think that is always very helpful, aside from timing your practice routines much more effectively when you have files like that. So to sum it up, let's listen to the first exercise again once more. Now let's move to the second and much harder exercise. For this one we are working with the continuous alternate picking motion already, so we are always playing downstroke, upstroke, and so on. And we are switching from 8th notes to 16th notes. So we are playing one measure of 8th notes and one measure of 16th notes. Here's how that sounds like. So once again, that might not sound too hard, but it's really challenging to do this very accurately when you're playing to the click by yourself, because the main challenge right here is that we want to switch from 8th notes to 16th notes without any kind of period in between where you're searching for the correct note value and where you're adapting to the new group. You have to be in time right after you switch to that new group. So when you practice this one to a click, the click will be counting quarter notes for you. So for the 8th notes, you're playing 2 notes per click. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And for the 16th notes, that is the first really big challenge when you're getting into alternate picking. You're playing 4 notes per beat. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So when you speed it up a bit, you're playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Or when you slow it down, 1, 2, 3, 4. And as you can see, playing that slowly is pretty tough, because you always tend to play a bit too fast, since you're thinking, wow, the 16th notes are coming up now, those are the faster notes, so I have to play faster. And most of the time you actually have to play laid back and to focus on the click, because it's difficult to play those 16th notes in time, since you have to play 4 notes on each click, so it takes quite a while until the next click is coming. And usually with my students and also with myself, when I'm playing faster stuff, I tend to come in a little bit early. So that is what I want you to pay attention to. This is a great exercise for your timing, and it really helps with that. Now, since we worked quite a lot with just the open E string for the first exercises, I think we should involve our left hand right now, and we will also look at a new note value at triplets, 8th note triplets to be precise. So for this third exercise, we are taking the principle of the previous exercise, where we are switching between different note groups, but this time we are also involving our left hand, and we are switching from 8th note triplets to 8th notes. So on every beat of the metronome in the first measure, I'm playing 3 notes, and then in the second measure, I'm only playing 2 notes on each beat. So this is the exercise performed much slower, and also how I'm counting it in my head to stay in time. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 1. One thing that you might have noticed with all the exercises so far is that I prefer to mute the notes so I can hear the accents that I'm performing a little bit better. Because for me, that way it's easier to hear if I'm playing in time than playing like that. That way I can really hear those picking strokes and make sure to play in time. But of course, it's also great to switch that up to work with palm muted notes and with open notes in your practice routine. So exercise 2 and 3 are quite similar. For exercise 2, we are switching between 8th notes and 16th notes, and for exercise number 3, we are switching between 8th notes and 8th note triplets. Let's look at 2 more advanced workouts right now to challenge you a bit. Here's workout number 4. For this one, we want to involve our left hand much more, so this is a great warm-up exercise as well for your right hand and for your left hand. And we're essentially playing the chromatic scale, simply every single note, and I'm limiting it to up to the 12th fret, so we're only playing in this area, and we're playing every single note ascending, and then we're descending. And here's what that sounds like. So the main challenge and also benefit with that exercise is working on hand synchronization, since we're playing a different note on every single picking stroke. So whenever a down or up stroke doesn't align with the right note with your left hand, or you're hitting the string while you're switching to the next note, your brain kind of realizes, okay, something went wrong there, and the more you work on that, the better the synchronization between your hands will be. The next tricky thing is that we have to constantly jump between different positions right here. And from a technical and especially left-hand technique point of view, the main goal with this exercise would be hiding those transitions from every single position, because it should sound like a piano player just ascending and descending on the piano. The listener shouldn't really hear that you constantly have to switch to a new position, that you're jumping a semitone up with every single repetition of the exercise. So we don't want it to sound like that, for example. Those were some very sloppy transitions between the positions. I was kind of sliding into the next one and I wasn't really on time. We want to connect all of those different position switches like that, for example. So although I was starting to play a bit faster right here, you couldn't really hear me switching between those different positions like that. Like that. It sounds really connected, and that's the main goal when you're practicing this. So start really, really slow. As far as the right hand is concerned, it's just a continuous down and up motion. So downstroke, upstroke, and so on. In the tabs and guitar profiles on Patreon, I wrote it down as an exercise in 16th notes, since it's a repeating pattern of 4 notes that is constantly repeated. So you always have a new pattern on every single quarter note when you play to the click. But you can also choose to work with 8th notes right here and to make it really, really slow. The most important thing is the clean execution of the exercise and not working on tempo and speed right away. So since that one is quite challenging, let's take a listen once again before we move to the final exercise for today. Alright, and now let's check out the final workout. This one is quite challenging for your right hand once again, because you're introduced to the first very advanced topic actually, called string skipping. So right now we are skipping between the A and the G string, and we don't want to hit the D string in between. And this is how the exercise looks like. So for this exercise I'm just playing an octave interval, so D in that case, similar to the power chord, the perfect fifth. I'm sure you're familiar with that one. We're just leaving out the middle note, so we are playing the same note twice, D, on the 5th fret on the A string and on the 7th fret on the G string. And we are playing 2 strokes for both positions, so downstroke, upstroke, and then we have to jump to the next string, downstroke, upstroke, and then we have to jump back. And that is of course quite challenging because, as I mentioned, we don't want to hit the D string in the middle. So it should sound something like that. Downstroke, upstroke, downstroke, upstroke, downstroke, upstroke, downstroke, upstroke, and we don't want to hit the string right in between. And as you speed that up and as you practice more, you will see that that is quite challenging, but it's the foundation for some really cool licks in the future where you can use those string skipping skills to avoid playing scale positions up and down all the time and to break out of that, to play really interesting phrases like that, for example. But that's a lick for another video. I really hope that you will work with these cool exercises in your practice routine from now on. Don't forget to download your tabs, guitar profiles and video player alongs for these exercises on my Patreon page, patreon.com/BERNTH. And if you're part of the Patreon VIP Club already, you can also upload your videos to our secret Facebook group to get some direct and really helpful input concerning your technique and how to improve it. Also make sure to leave a like in case you learned something new and to subscribe to join this guitar community today. That way you won't ever miss another video upload again. I will hopefully see you again in the next video. All the best and have a lot of fun practicing until then.